Thinking about yourself is not selfish. It is the beginning of self-leadership. And self-leadership is the foundation of every extraordinary life. Because if you cannot direct your own mind, your own emotions, your own standards, then the world will direct them for you. And most people live trapped inside other people's expectations, fears, and limitations without ever realizing they had the power to choose differently. You were not born to abandon yourself for approval. You were not born to shrink your voice so others could feel comfortable. You were not born to postpone your dreams until someday that never arrives. And yet that is exactly how many people live. Quietly negotiating away their potential in exchange for short-term comfort and external validation. Thinking about yourself means asking the hardest questions most people avoid. Who am I becoming through my daily choices? What do I really want from my one life? What am I tolerating that is costing me my future? What standard am I living by when no one is watching? And those questions are not comfortable, but they are the questions that separate a life of reaction from a life of intention. When you refuse to think about yourself, you drift, and when you drift, you absorb whatever environment you are placed in. You absorb the beliefs of the fearful, the habits of the undisciplined, the limits of the discouraged, and little by little you forget that you were ever meant for more. But the moment you turn inward with honesty, not judgment, but awareness, you begin to reclaim your power. Because awareness is the doorway to change. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine, and you cannot lead what you refuse to acknowledge. Inspiration does not fall from the sky. It rises from decision. It rises from choosing to believe in your own potential, even when there is no evidence. It rises from choosing to speak to yourself with strength instead of sabotage. Because your internal dialogue is not just a voice, it is a command system shaping your identity. Every word you whisper to yourself becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. And most people are unconsciously voting against themselves every day with doubt, with criticism, with comparison, with fear, with stories of limitation they inherited instead of chose. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your self-talk. And if your self-talk is rooted in weakness, your actions will always hesitate. But if your self-talk is rooted in strength, your actions will begin to align with power. When you inspire yourself first, something revolutionary happens. You stop begging the world to believe in you. You stop waiting for permission, you stop shrinking until someone approves, and you start moving from a place of inner certainty instead of external validation. External motivation is unreliable. It fades. It fluctuates. It depends on circumstances. But internal inspiration is forged, and once it is forged, it does not disappear when things get hard. It intensifies. Most people are trained from childhood to seek approval before they seek alignment, to ask what will people think before they ask what do I feel called to do. And over time, that pattern weakens the soul, because every time you betray your own truth for acceptance, you lose a piece of your inner authority. And without inner authority, life becomes a performance instead of a mission. Inspiration begins when you decide that your opinion of yourself matters more than the opinions of the crowd, because the crowd does not live with the consequences of your choices. You do. You will carry the weight of your regrets, not them. You will live the days you postpone, not them. You will feel the cost of your compromises, not them. So if someone is going to be disappointed in your life, let it never be you. Thinking about yourself always does not mean ignoring others. It means anchoring yourself so deeply in your values and truth that when you serve others, you do so from strength instead of emptiness, from overflow instead of depletion. You cannot pour confidence into others when you live in self-doubt. You cannot lead others when you abandon yourself. You can't inspire others when your own inner fire is burning low. Your first responsibility is not to be liked, it is to be aligned. Your first responsibility is not to be comfortable, it is to be awake. Your first responsibility is not to fit in, it is to stand for who you are becoming. Your internal dialogue shapes your energy shapes your behavior shapes your identity, and your identity shapes your destiny. This is not philosophy, this is the mechanics of transformation. If you speak to yourself like a victim, you move like one. If you speak to yourself like a leader, you rise like one. Most people wait for confidence before they act, But confidence is born after action, not before it. You do not feel your way into a new life. You act your way into new beliefs. And the fuel for that action is not hype. It is self-inspiration. It is choosing to say, even when I am afraid, even when I am uncertain, even when I feel unready, I am still moving. You inspire yourself by keeping promises to yourself. You inspire yourself by showing up when excuses feel convincing. You inspire yourself by choosing progress over perfection. You inspire yourself by proving through action that your word to yourself matters. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken self-true. Saint. Every time you keep one, you build self-belief. And self-belief is not arrogance. It is alignment between who you say you are and how you live. Most people are exhausted not because life is too demanding, but because they are living in a constant war with themselves. Wanting more but settling for less. Dreaming big but acting small. Yearning for change but clinging to comfort. That internal contradiction drains the spirit. When you think about yourself with honesty and courage, you begin to close that gap. You begin to align what you want with what you do. And when alignment appears, energy returns, clarity returns, purpose returns. Your internal dialogue is either building the bridge to your future or reinforcing the walls of your past. If your past trained you to doubt, you must now train yourself to decide. If your past trained you to settle, you must now train yourself to rise. If your past trained you to fear, you must now train yourself to move anyway. Thinking about yourself always means guarding your mind like the most valuable asset you own, because it is. Your attention is your currency, and whatever you invested in grows. Invested in fear, fear grows. Invested in strength, strength grows. Inspiration is not loud, it is steady, it is not dramatic, it is disciplined, it is not sudden, it is cumulative. It builds quietly every time you choose to think differently under pressure. It builds every time you challenge the lie that you are not enough. It builds every time you act in alignment with your values instead of your moods. You are not inspired by what you wait for. You are inspired by what you create. And the greatest creation you will ever shape is not a business, not a career, not a reputation. It is your identity. When you begin to think about yourself as someone who follows through, someone who grows, someone who adapts, someone who rises after falling, your nervous system begins to accept that identity as truth, and your behavior starts to follow. Your mind does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you consistently affirm through thought and action. The world will never give you permission to become powerful. You must grant that permission to yourself through daily decisions. And those decisions are not always heroic. Most of them are small, private, almost invisible. Choosing discipline when no one is watching. Choosing courage when silence feels safer. Choosing growth when comfort feels sweeter. This is how you inspire yourself into a new life. Not with a single breakthrough moment, but with thousands of aligned micro decisions. Most people think transformation is an event, but transformation is an identity shift reinforced by behavior over time. You cannot wait until you feel inspired to think powerfully. You must think powerfully to feel inspired. You cannot wait until confidence arrives to act boldly. You must act boldly to invite confidence. You are always teaching your nervous system who you are, either through fear or through decision. And the day you decide that your future deserves more respect than your comfort, inspiration becomes natural. Thinking about yourself always means remembering that your life is not a rehearsal. There is no second attempt at this exact moment, no replay for this exact season, no do-over for today. You do not get time back. You do not get unused potential refunded. You do not get postponed courage restored later. The cost of inaction compounds silently. And one day, if you are not careful, the weight of what you did not do will feel heavier than the fear that once stopped you. But the opposite is also true. The power of aligned action compounds quietly too. The strength you build through consistency becomes unshakable. The self-belief you forge through discipline becomes unbreakable. When you inspire yourself first, you stop waiting for life to change, and you become the change that forces life to respond. You stop asking what if, and you start asking what now. You stop negotiating with doubt, and you start commanding your direction. You stop living from reaction, and you start living from intention. Thinking about yourself always is not vanity. It is responsibility. It is the responsibility to become the strongest version of you so that your presence elevates every room you enter. It is the responsibility to master your mind so your circumstances do not master you. It is the responsibility to grow so that your influence carries weight. And when you live from that place, inspiration is no longer something you seek from others. It becomes something you generate from within. And that is when your life stops being a question and starts becoming an answer in motion.